Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. Thanks, Nikki, for the introduction, and good to be with you. I'm speaking from the Netherlands, by the way. It's 1 hour earlier, and there are about 10 construction people trying to ruin my house at the same time I'm speaking. So, but they agreed to have less background noises here. But we'll survive. So, thanks for having me. And
Wonderful. Glad to have you.
Okay, let me first start sharing my screen because you invited me to have a 20 minutes presentation on how I see the future of AI and everything that's happening. And afterwards we have an even more interesting discussion on the future of jobs, and then we start discussing on that. So please, everybody, make as much as possible questions to give us a very hard time in the last 20 minutes so that we can really start sharing information, because we have some challenging statements that hopefully provoke a little bit of discussion. Now, let me start by sharing my screen. And oh, maybe it's a little too fast. So this is on the. This is actually just for my introduction. I'm indeed heading an AI institute in Eindhoven at this moment. My background is actually in the automotive. I always worked in the automotive industry. Most of that in the navigation area, most of that at TomTom. But the last couple of years, I mainly work at the university, also to align all the mobility research. But now setting up a very nice institute. And from that perspective, I will give you some examples of how I see technology is changing. Therefore, also my subtitle, Who Takes the Wheel? Because that, to my point of view, actually the essential question for the future, not only in automotive, will the cars take over the driving, but I think in entire society, what will robots do if they get smarter than us, and what will we do? So that's a little bit, I can talk about that for hours, but I will use about 20 minutes in order to give you just some ideas of what's happening there. Now, maybe just to look at my job, this is maybe the most interesting part, or at least the most exciting part of my job. I'm also responsible at my university in Eindhoven, in the south of Netherlands, for all the student teams that come up with, and that's actually the talent of students, and why it's so nice to work with students and youngsters, is because they have this unique capacity to come up with the most stupid ideas. Like, for instance, here you see a car, the fourth in the row, that's a solar car. They came to me, they said, we're going to put solar cells on a car and drive with that. And I, with all my wisdom and experience, could easily calculate that's not going to work. That's just enough energy to fuel one of the two headlights and maybe the horn or something. Unless you drive in India, then you need an extra generator for the horn, you know how that goes. So that's not enough energy. But then they came up with this rather funny looking vehicle, because it's optimized for aerodynamics, but also to host as most as possible solar cells. And they had a new kind of solar cell that I didn't know of. And they made this car so efficient that it can do 150 kilometers per hour, no problem. It seats 5 people, and they won a contest in Australia from the north to the south. And they drove 5,000 kilometers in 6 days. Sorry, 3,000 kilometers in 6 days, so 500 per day. And at the end, they generated more power than what they used. So that's a total mind shift, actually, that they brought into me. So these kind of people I work with, and actually they now form their own companies. This is just, and I coach them, this I'm happy to do. I learn more from them than the other way around. And they now make this vehicle so that you can buy it. This is actually the production vehicle, and you can buy it and even order it at Lightyear 1, and ordered one. So I hope that this is my vehicle next year. And that's actually what I learned from these students. And also because I know there's a lot of young people now in the audience, and I also challenge you to, and you probably already have this mindset, so you might not even know that there's another world there, but this going for the moonshot, this is so nice what they do. They are not aiming of doing things 10% better, which is everyday business and very important for any company to improve yourself year after year. But the real thing and the real change come people who do things 10 times better. So they don't think we're going to make a very fuel efficient car. Nay, they're going to make a car that is totally independent from the grid. That's thinking 10 times better. Now I have to give a warning here, because most of the time, I'm a lot in Silicon Valley. And there's an almost religious belief, because these students, they come up with the stupid idea that can be a breakthrough, because every breakthrough used to be a stupid idea. The breakthrough of tomorrow is the stupid idea of yesterday. But there's almost a firm belief in Silicon Valley that it's also the other way around, that every stupid idea will be a breakthrough, which is not true. Most of the stupid ideas are indeed very stupid ideas, to my regret. But it should not stop you from trying to get there, because there might be some breakthrough there. And also the students have nothing to lose. because searching for their moonshot, their stupid idea, they might find something else that they otherwise would have never found. They, like the solar car now, already have 2 spin-offs companies that only concentrate on the solar cells itself. Talking about these moonshots, it's actually a combination of a huge problem, and I think there are enough huge problems in the world still to tackle, using breakthrough technology, and then come up with a radical solution. And in the crossing of these 3, that's actually where the real changes are. That's where you think, let's go to the moon, or let's make a car that doesn't run on the grid, etc. So the thing is that actually here on the left, on the red circle, the breakthrough technology, that's something that's really changed in the last decades. A couple of decades ago, nobody had access to huge amount of servers, to huge amount of tooling, etc. Nowadays, it's there for the grab. You should not be, and that's really a change with a couple of decades ago. You're just imagination constrained, not resource constrained, because you have the entire world in order to supply you. And especially now with the huge calculation power that you just can actually rent from other companies, it's really going in an exponential way. And that has to do with Moore's law, because the calculation power doubles every 18 months. Now, let me grab to some examples from what the automotive industry is going through, because that's actually my background. Cars are really computers on wheels nowadays, and they communicate with each other and with all kinds of servers. And I haven't got a clue where the 4 modems in my new car are communicating with, but in some way they created an internet of vehicles. And it's a typical industry that's now in this midst of disruption. And most of the things you heard about self-driving cars, and let me just touch on self-driving cars, because I have a little bit of a vision that most of the people have in this field. And for me, that's actually the background on how in the future we will relate with technology, because Google said that cars will take over themselves. These are the cars they say will take over the entire industry. In 5 years from now, they said nobody will drive their own car. It's just these kind of little horizontal elevators without a wheel. You just get in and you get out somewhere else. And that's actually what they say, that will totally take over the car industry in 5 years. The problem is that they already said this 9 years ago, and we still don't see these self-driving cars. Actually, most of these projects are kind of stopping. This robot taxi future world they dreamed about is not happening for some reason. To my point of view, it also has to do with how reality looks like. And when I showed this picture, then Nikki already thought this was India, but I have to say it's Athens, really. But it's a couple of decades ago, I think 15 years ago or something. But actually not, I know Athens by now. The behavior didn't really change. But here you see that these cars, these autonomous cars, they will not function so well in this situation, because they want to know where the lanes are, but you cannot even count how many lanes there are here, because nobody sticks to that. Now here, this car, it doesn't show the indicator, but it still goes to the right. So in real life, people do not really follow the rules. And here, there's here one line, so at least, but here it also says that's only for buses, but okay, somebody just parked in the midst of that lane, and people have to just cross that line, which frankly said for the real regulation is not allowed. It's not only finger pointing at your country. This is my country, Amsterdam. And here also the bikes have way to the cars. So the car at the right should wait until there's no bike anymore, but that never happens in Amsterdam. You have bikes day and night. So we agreed on some informal rules that at a certain moment you just close your eyes and give it a go, and the bikes know about that and they account on that. So these are all informal rules. When a white van comes, stop, because we know the white vans don't stop. That's just some informal ruling that you get to see in real time. Look at how the lady in the red dress at the right communicates with the car, who gets way, and then she said, okay, and you go first, bike squeezes in, etc. And this seems to be dangerous, but hardly any accidents happen. You see in the midst that an accident is happening, but actually nothing really happened. This unregulated, unconditioned world kind of works well. She just decides that biking is not her thing, etc., and the world continues. So this is actually a very, very, very essential difference. The real world is not conditioned. And actually, in order to function in a real world, you have to know how to flexibly interpret the regulation. Robots are not so good at that. We should not program robots to flexibly interpret the law. Robots are very good in conditioned situations like this bowling alley. There's no pedestrians, there's no bikes. The pins are always at the same place. So this is a total conditioned system. And if you give a robot a simple assignment to just crash all the pins, It will just learn and continue to learn. At a certain know how to do it. At a certain moment, it knows how to do it and just will have 100% hit rate. And that's actually the essential point to my point of view. Why I am talking about this. This is, to my point of view, also how we relate to AI in the future. The unconditioned reality, a lot of people say, yeah, but if all the cars will be automated and all the bikes will be also connected, etc., and all the pedestrians will follow the rules instead of just being anarchistic, that could be, but then this crossing in Amsterdam would not function anymore. The throughput would be about 10 times lower. So actually this unconditioned reality tends to perform better. And the same goes for innovative companies. Actually, if you are 100% following the rules in a company, you're not going to contribute anything to innovation. And this is just a call on you to be a little bit anarchistic in an ethical way. You should not kill the company with it. But if you know what the goal of a company is, then actually your mainly added value in the future will be that you are able as a human being to flexibly interpret the regulations. That's the essence here. It goes for society and all things. And I don't think we should allow AI to do so. This, to my point of view, summarizes how we relate to the robots in the future. Let us do the stuff, the coloring outside the lines, and let the robot do the coloring inside the lines. It's also how Volvo creates this vision of 2020, which they still have, and 2020 started, that nobody should be seriously injured or killed in a new Volvo car, which actually didn't really happen as far as I've seen the statistics with new Volvo cars, because they're full of automation that not take over the entire driving, but just take over before you make an accident. And that's the best cooperation with robots, that as soon as things got out of their hand, they are there to solve the thing. And they can also take over the nasty bits of driving, like driving in a traffic jam. If your car takes over driving in a traffic jam, you do not mind the traffic jam anymore. Or the very long stretches of highway, if they take over, then actually the total experience of driving only gets better. The robots do the nasty bits, and we do the fun bits, and the robots make sure that we can drive inherently safe. And it doesn't need a fully automated driving system, etc. But there is a little bit of a problem, and I don't have to tell you as Greek people, that people already love their cars so much. And if the car now takes over the nasty bits like making accidents and driving in a traffic jam, we're going to love the car even more. And that's a problem, because the problem of the future in mobility is not so much the accidents, it's the space. You see the space that you need in a private car for 60 people, and Uber or driverless cars are not going to help there, because they're just as space inefficient as a normal car. A city therefore doesn't need driverless cars, it needs carless drivers, people using bikes and public transport. In cities, there's no other way in order to organize it as such, because otherwise the entire cities will be filled with cars, as already is the case at this moment, which is actually a kind of stupid way how to use your city. We don't need self-driving cars, we need self-walking pedestrians. That's actually the essence why people come to cities for. And maybe just to show some pictures, what to my point of view, just to finish my talk, is the most interesting trend, which is not so high-tech, but just because of the thing that we are able to drive around in more modalities, and we can also make them available much easier. This is what happened to Amsterdam. We used to be, we're now a bike city. We didn't used to be 40 years ago. As you can see what happened here. And this is not only Amsterdam, this is what happened. The world really were better. Now, of course, the right picture is on a sunny day and the left on had been a gray day, but this is already what happened. There's always same camera point of view. It's all around. This is George Street in Sydney. Used to be cars, now there are people. And actually, this is a very nice trend that is happening all over the world. Bogota, even in Los Angeles, they are now reclaiming space in order to live. Park Avenue, New York, this is what it used to be. This is how people designed it. This is why you have cities, in order to engage with each other, etc. This is how it looks now. And this is how it should look in a couple of years from now. So we are fighting back. And this is a nice project that's also in Athens. And we're going to have a talk later this week. I'm flying to Athens to also have discussion on this, how to make this new shift towards really using cities to our cities of four. So Athens is also undergoing this radical facelift. As a conclusion, I just want to come back to this relation that we are going to have with robots, and also as a matter of introduction to the next speaker that's more going to talk about the future jobs and how you should prepare for this. I give you my high abstract level. I already gave you the distribution between robots and us. To my point of view is that Robots will do the coloring inside the lines kind of jobs. That's anyhow too boring, and we don't add value to that because the regulations are there and you just have to execute it. There's no added value in that. We can do the things of coloring outside the lines in a way that it doesn't go out of hand. That's what makes us human. And that's also how, to my point of view, the distribution should be for the future. If we let AI color outside the lines, it might really increase the speed towards the end of humanity. That's something that is a no-go area, to my point of view. But the question is always, what are we going to do? What is this kind of jobs? And it's very, very hard to tell. If you just now look at Maslow's pyramid, this is actually something what really is the foundation of what makes us tick. And it's mainly physiological means. And if we got the food, etc., sorted out, and we start looking for safety, we don't care about safety when we're hungry, but we kept on building and going upwards. And now, because of the pandemic, we were a little bit more downstairs. We even were looking for toilet paper, which seems to be at the bottom of Maslow's pyramid. But this is actually what fuels us. And the thing is, we're crawling up, and the new jobs are in the top of this Maslow pyramid. And what kind of jobs are they? It's similar that if you would ask a farmer 200 years ago what the future jobs are. Back then, 70% of us were farmer. Nowadays, if you see the bottom line, it's only 3%. The farmer 200 years ago would have concluded that 67% of people were doing nothing, just waiting for the other ones to prepare their food. But no, we found other jobs. And if the farmer would ask what kind of jobs, you would have said, yeah, software developer or an app developer, a yoga coach. He would have said, yeah, that's not going to bring food on the table. What kind of nonsense jobs are that? Or here, this guy, he is an emoji translator. Try to explain that to a farmer 200 years ago. And the guy, as you look at his face, he's dead serious about his job. And that's actually so hard to tell what kind of jobs we will do in the future. It's more about the feeling of accomplishment and the self-actualization. Now, I have to say that actually in this kind of jobs, the typical male job, so guys in the audience, we have a problem because the typical male jobs are on the bottom. Harvesting food, creating safety, the real male kind of stuff. That's more and more being automized. The difference is going to be made more in the top, and that's actually what I should say, more kind of female jobs. So they will be power. We have to adapt, guys. That's just the last line I'm going. So who better to talk about this than a woman, which is the next speaker, Christina. But just I leave you with this line. The reasonable man adapts, because all these jobs will probably sound unreasonable to us, but the reasonable man adapts himself to the world, and the unreasonable man persists in trying to change the world, or to adapt the world to himself. And therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man, but mainly, as I just say, probably the unreasonable women. So thanks for your attention. There's a lot of time for discussion at the end, but herewith, let's talk a little bit more about how you should prepare for future jobs, because probably you're all going to do jobs that haven't been invented right now. So it doesn't mean that we can predict this future, but it doesn't mean you can't prepare for that. So with this, I want to give the word back to Nikki, who's going to introduce you to someone who can talk more about this. Nikki.
I was muted. Carlo, that was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. So insightful and full of information. And I have a lot of questions, but I will wait till the end of Christina's presentation. And for all of you who watch, please get into Inventora, give us your questions so we can have a nice Q&A after Christina. So Christina,